Hello, everybody, and welcome to our second Wisdom of Women interviews, where every week I interview an inspiring woman and invite her to share her wisdom with you. So, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Sarah Grace, and I'm on a mission to help professional women who've experienced sexual abuse as children and are now overworking in an attempt to keep the lid on their inner turmoil to reclaim their inner peace, self love, and worthiness without losing all that they've worked so hard to achieve. To find out more, you can visit me at www.livinglimitlessly.co.uk. So today I am interviewing the beautiful Nalassa Cutler, who is a space goddess, a traveller, an artist, and a lover of life. So tonight we're going to be discussing space and spaciousness and how we align our environment with our soul through design. So if that is something you're interested in, if you've got a load of clutter that you need to sort out, like me, then this is going to really interest you. So welcome, Nalassa. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, Nalassa, what do you do that brings value to the world, and why are you passionate about it?
Oh, I, so I design spaces. I work with energy. I work with design. I've been an artist since I was a wee child. I love painting, putting things together, and I moved a lot. So I love going into spaces and really getting a feel for the energy there, where things are supposed to be, what could get moved, and really like layering on how you can make such a different impact when you create great systems, and really working with the energy of the person that's residing there to create like a really collaborative space, and ease.
And why are you passionate about that?
Um, it feels like it's my soul work. I've always, we get so like weighed down with our possessions, with our things, with our stuff. And there's just so much joy that can also be had in them. Like having even like a cup or a mug, or people have like the little possessions and they bring so much joy to them. And so it's not, so I'm passionate about really creating coherency in the body between like your possessions and your space and your environment and who you are. And instead of being at odds with that, a lot of times we fight that in different ways and feel the weight of it all, especially in our consumeristic society of needing more, needing this or needing that. And instead really creating a relationship that is supportive. So I have a really strong spiritual idea. I do work with energetics when I work with space. And so it's how do you create coherency, resonance or alignment between these objects, the space, and like who you are and who you want to be as a person. And as far as like passion, I find the world so beautiful. There's just so many exquisite things and experiences and everything. And so like, how do you have control over your space? There's so many things in the world that we don't have agency or control over. But you do have your location, your home, your car, your bedroom, whatever it is, your property, that you do have complete agency over, that you are in a collaborative relationship, I view, with the environment that's there, with the energies that is there from nature, with different things. And so how do you align, how do you acknowledge and accept that and really allow it to fill you, because you are in a dance with it. And so I just find it like there's just so many aspects to what I do that I absolutely love. And it works with many different layers. And I love just the art of people, like when they come in and see something, they just love being there. It makes their whole life function more easily and flowing. And there's nothing better than that.
Absolutely, yeah, and I know, for those of you that are watching, I shared a little bit, but, Nalasa and I have done a little bit of work together. We are both members of an amazing thing called the Service Swap Shop, where we're organised by the wonderful Sarah Knoll, and we have swapped our services. So Nalasa's had some hypno from me, and I've benefited from the amazing work that she does, and I have shared a little bit with my people that one of my trauma responses has been to. I'm not a full on hoarder, but I find it really difficult to let go of things that I've got. Everything seems to have an emotional charge. Everything from when the kids were little, things that were my mum's, and she's passed now, and throwing them away. I explained to Nalasa that throwing them away or giving them away felt like I was throwing away the memory or disrespecting that period of my life. Is that something that your clients? Is it just me that's like that, or is it something
Absolutely
common?
not. It is very, very common, and it's interesting actually, like, hearing from you from, just I don't know if it's your background, but, like, trauma response and having
Yeah.
it be, like, that deep, but so part of my whole thing with aligning your environment with your soul through design is really that you can use your external world, like, we are holding our traumas, triumphs, the different things or parts of us, we're holding on our physical objects, and so when you can work on it internally, which makes getting rid of the things quite easier, or you can work on it externally and it will also bring up those feelings or allow different things to come. So,
Give us an
I
example. Yeah. Give us an
example.
example
Um,
of how that
so
looks
like
in real life.
if you don't have an attachment to an object,
Mhm.
it will relatively be able to be easy to be like, okay, this is
Yeah.
of no
The
use. This is
sheets.
like
Yeah.
it doesn't something, it just goes.
Yeah.
Um, And yeah, there's like five main reasons. I can think of them all. Five main reasons why people hold on to things. So one is guilt. So guilt of this person gave me this. I can't get rid of it. My mother gave me this like ugly bracelet that I never want to wear, but I can't get rid of it because I just somehow know and be hurt by it or whatever it is. She spent money on it. I can't like allow that to go. Um, Two is emotional charge. So whether it's from a deceased loved one, some objects that hold like a lot of meaning to us, um, like there's barriers, emotional barriers of feeling like I'll feel regret or longing or like they'll won't be part of me if I really like let that go as well. So that's
Mm.
like internal emotional. And then there's like practical, like, oh, well, this is useful, it's gonna be
Mm.
useful someday, I might as well hold on to it.
Yeah. I
Um,
know that one.
like, yeah, I can't get rid of this, like, random thing that, like, I never will actually use, but it's like, it will have a use someday. Um,
Mhm.
and then there's the idea of, like, just you spent money on it, like, this is a value, like, I already invested in it, like, I don't wanna let it go. Um, and there's another one I can't recall right this moment. But there are these things that we hold on to
Mm.
that make it very hard to get rid of stuff. And I grew up
Yeah.
with a person that was not quite a hoarder, but she was a hoarder. My parents both like had struggled with like letting things go. And so
Mm.
I've seen very firsthand and um, just how hard it is when we have like these really close possessions, these things
Mm.
from either deceased, like in my mom's case, I had a sister who passed away, and she would just like hold on to her things, or we'd start going through her stuff.
Mm.
I worked from like quite a young level, like being like, let's clean up, let's move things around and everything. And she would just get like flooded with emotion
Mm.
and like needing to get rid of it. It's just like, I don't even want to look at it. I can't touch it. I can't interact with it
Mm.
really because it's just like too painful. And so really what I do with clients is like how do you like come back to yourself? It's not necessarily about the actual object. It's about like
Yeah.
the emotion, the things, like what are you actually experiencing during that interaction, during that thing? Like what is the charge that's coming? Like what are you needing to fill or what are you placing onto that object to then make it so there is a charge there. And like, how can
Yeah.
you regroup your energy? How can you come back to yourself, your environment? What are you actually wanting to live in and be surrounded by, and really creating peace with that. Um,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like multiple levels.
Yeah, because I know from the work we did was just last week. It was just last week,
Yeah.
wasn't it? That I so we are we emptied our house. We this is for the listeners. And if you are watching this, would you, if you're watching on the replay, give us a hashtag replay and tell us where you're watching from. It'd be lovely to see the reach. So yeah, we are empty. We had to empty the bathroom, which had turned into a just a big place to stuff everything that I brought from the UK nearly 20 years ago. When I moved, I just brought everything with me. I wasn't in a sort of a psychological state to be able to deal with the stuff. So I packed it all up, brought it all the way over. And I'm looking at it thinking, I'm not blooming well taking it all the way back again. That is ridiculous. I need to sort stuff out. And what was worse was having everything in the cupboard and not being able to see it. So, and you're suggesting bringing it out and looking at it, and then just would you like to describe the process that you shared with me around how to say goodbye to those things so that you could do it without feeling ooh.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we started with really feeling connected to like the love of where you are at,
Yeah.
with your property, with your land, um, just the time that you've been there, and also really acknowledging how much growth you've lived in your house for, is it 16, 18 years?
Yeah,
Um,
18 years, yeah.
Yeah, and so just really, I think acknowledging who you are right now and where you were when you had that stuff, like where you felt like, where did you make the decision that you couldn't make the decision about those things?
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Um,
right, we did,
and
yeah.
so going back and like loving that part of you and also acknowledging that right now is a different moment. You're a different
Mm,
person. And also you acknowledge, we really acknowledge together like how much growth, how much experience, and how different you are now, 18
mhm,
years later, being in this
mhm,
home, doing all this work, doing self-help work, self-growth work, really healing any parts of yourself that is different.
yeah,
And so that's where I feel like, I mean, anyone needs to start is just like, okay, like a good assessment of where you are right now. And then
yeah,
connecting like with your space, like who are you right now? And where are you wanting to go? And not just like in a mental capacity of like, who am I right now? But like really feeling like the weight of like your body on the land, feeling the connection to the earth, to who you are, where you're wanting to be, what are you wanting to surround yourself with. Um, and I think a really key thing is in acknowledging that like the objects don't create the memories.
mhm, mhm,
Like the memories create the memories. Like you can always take a photograph and like have it that way if you need to hold on to
yeah, the
something in some
thing,
practical
yeah,
way. Being like,
yeah,
oh, this thing, it's like, okay, like I don't actually want this like ratty teddy bear anymore, but like I can take a photo of it, and then that photo, like, and then if that photo is really really dear to you, you can even frame it, put it in a nice frame, have it on your wall, and then that will also like elicit just as many, if not more, because you can
mm,
repattern and be like, okay, like what does this teddy bear actually represent to me? It's not just a teddy bear and like my daughter really loving it and taking with her to
mm,
like all over the world and dragging it until it was really dirty and lost an eye, etc. But like you can have a photo of it, but then you can also be like, okay, this represents my love for her, the care, the journeys we went on together, her
mhm,
youth and preciousness and innocence or whatever.
mm,
And you can um, take a moment to like be like, okay, like what is this thing actually give and represent, and how do I want to remember it by? And if
yeah,
you like do all of this, like the actual object isn't the thing so much as like the acknowledging of the memory and the feeling and the sensation and
mm,
ultimately it always comes back to like what is the love that was there, and
yeah.
how you then like feel that and know that that isn't going anywhere regardless of
Yeah,
whatever
I
possessions you
found
may
that immensely helpful, immensely helpful. I mean, I've just started on the big pile in the corner, which is because Nalasa also shared with me it's best if you start with the not so emotionally charged stuff. I started with the towels, the sheets, and the blankets and the bedding, because I thought I'll be fine with that. So I started with, and I got a bit of momentum up, and I thought, you know what, I'm feeling pretty brave. I think I could deal shoes. I could do with shoes. So, and I managed to clean out this cupboard, and I found shoes. I'd forgotten I'd got. They're gorgeous. So there were some lovely surprises because I can use them again. I'd forgotten about them. And there's others which I like. It's such a like shoes, honestly. And I'm looking at these shoes and thinking, well, when did I wear? Yes, that's why I feel attached to them. But honestly, Sarah, you can't get your bunion in there. This is ridiculous. You know, either throw it away or give it away. Yes, they were lovely and you enjoyed that night out, but now you can part with the sodding shoe.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so it did having and sort of respecting, because I tend to think that I'm a bit bonkers because of this hardy thing, and that it's not kind of respected. People are saying, "Oh, throw it out," whereas with your process of kind of a bit Marie Kondo-ish, blessing it and releasing it, then actually going through the memories of where I was when I last saw the thing and what it really represented to me did make it a lot easier to separate the item from all of that precious stuff you've got inside you, the emotional charge, because we know that everything we do and we remember the things because of the emotional charge. It's the emotion that matters, not the thing.
Yeah.
And that really helped me to be able to separate out those two things that were pulling in opposite directions, and the freedom that I feel like I keep opening the cupboard where I've put back, like we had hundreds of sheets for a single bed. We don't have a single bed. Haven't had a single bed since the kids were young. And so there was all this bedding taking up a massive part of the cupboard that I keep opening the cupboard and I'm like, oh, doesn't that look good? Doesn't that look good? I really,
Yeah.
I really get. Is anybody out there listening who's going, she's a raving nutter, or do you get what I'm saying? Does anybody else have any
People
of those
totally get you.
feelings? Yeah, around being emotionally attached to an old towel.
Yeah, yeah. And so that brings it back to like the use and part, I think, giving away or the idea of wastefulness, of throwing things away. Like, this is
Yes,
useful.
that's a
I
big
should
thing
be
for
able
me.
to hold on to it because it's useful.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
it feels bad. We hear so much about global warming, throwing things just throwing things away feels wasteful because it's like, okay, this is still good. And so like being able to donate or like find good places, like finding good homes for things. I know I gave you a list of categories of like organizing things and like donation, things to either sell or like repurpose or like give away to good homes, whether that's
yeah,
selling or just like finding places, donating more generically. And then there are obviously things that have had their life and are ready to
yeah,
go
yeah,
and either by being recycled or thrown away.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah. Yeah, we've got Claire's said, yeah, she really gets what I'm saying totally. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I'm glad I'm not alone, Claire. I think there'll be a lot of people. Yeah. Yeah. So, what are the most common things that people struggle with in your area of work?
Um, I think, I think it all boils down to disconnection. So,
Ah.
whether it's like disconnected from like the land and their place, or like somewhat disconnected from their body in some way,
Mm,
there's a disconnection of like what is actually going on in their home or their environment and like where they're wanting to be. And so, I feel like mostly my work is creating that connection or creating that coherency. But partly what you mentioned before is the idea of like space and spaciousness. So it's like you're clearing out that closet that also creates more space in your being. Like you look in it now and you're like, oh, there's just like space for me
yes.
to breathe and be, or like
Yeah.
put something else there. Like what else could I put there now that will like be more exciting or like have a better home there than a thing that was just stagnant. And so
Mm,
it's like the concept of this is like space and spaciousness. It's like not like using space to create spaciousness, both like in your home and also in your body. And like with that spaciousness, as soon as you have space, especially if you don't need to fill it, it allows for more things to come. And so,
got you. So if
yeah.
somebody, yeah, now that sparks another thought of I remember reading years ago when I was single, and I was reading something and it said you need to make space for that person to come into your life. So you need to create a space in your wardrobe where his clothes will go, and make because I realized looking around the house there is not a sliver of room for anybody to actually come into my house and be comfortable. And before Graham and I got together, that's exactly what I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Tell us a bit
making
more
the
about creating space inside. That's really
yeah, making,
fascinating.
like, the energetic, and then it reminds me actually, those connected together. It's like,
Mm,
what do people, like, not notice or have trouble with? It's like noticing, like, where, like, dirt gets kept, and like where there's this, like, I was in one of my clients' houses the other day, and she just had like a trim line like going around her place, and it, like, she moved in there a year ago. It was freshly painted and it, like, looked nice, but then it started getting just like worn, and it was white walls with like this almost like asphalt gray strip everywhere, and it just like
mm,
it was quite chaotic. And I could, like, when I went in, I was just like, okay, this is like, just paint it white and it will instantly just like melt to the background and create like more peace in your space. And so there's lots of like little tricks of design. I do work with feng shui. I agree with like um, what you say as far as like making space, like when you
mm,
having a headboard is really important. Having two like bedside tables, they don't need to
mhm,
be matching, they don't need to be identical, but like having a space for like both like people, like having balance, having plants and aliveness and good lighting, like all of these things are
mm.
just such simple easy tricks to put in just like that could be lacking in an environment that easily transforms it. Um,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, so like lighting, plants,
Mm,
they're key things.
mm,
And then really just thinking about, I mean, I'm an artist as well, so just like
mhm,
thinking about design of like, where does the eye get drawn to? Like, what is the focal piece of a room? Like, where do you want that to be, and like what do you want that to elicit, like within you or within the people occupying the space? And so really asking
mm,
these questions as like a design, like as a standard of design. It's like, it's not just a living room. It's like, I want the living room to, what do you want it to do? Do you want it to feel more like homey, warm, soft? Do you like, how do you want to feel there? What are you going for,
mm.
etc.? And so like,
Yeah,
what would you love? Like, what do you want to elicit? And then like,
mm,
I feel like people are very intuitive with what they can design. Like some people say they're not a designer, and I understand, like, in general, like
mm.
that is true with people. I have it as second nature, and I've been designing and playing with people's rooms. My best friend, also, even when I was little, she's like, "Design my room, help me organize, help me do all this stuff."
Yeah.
And it's interesting, like with her, I've worked with her actually quite a bit, and she's just like, I just never learned these systems. Like I never learned these organizational systems or structures. Like it doesn't get taught.
No, it doesn't.
And yeah, and I mean, Marie Kondo, I think, probably touches upon that to some degree, but like you don't learn how to organize. Like it's, I mean, it would be such like learning how to like organize both like your email. There's so many things in school that can get taught that would just make it
Yeah,
such productive,
yeah,
like productive living. And that's just like practical, like how do you organize and like keep a
yeah, yeah, yeah,
space,
yeah.
not even getting into like the energetic
Yeah,
spiritual like
yeah, that's
connection
the
level.
magic, isn't it? Yeah, that's the magic of what you do, is that you've got it's that understanding that you and your space are a connection. They are your space, I think you said to me, your space is it how did you put it? An external something of me? Well, you put it much
Yes.
more eloquently. Tell me what you
It's
said.
in, so like the whole concept of like as within, so without, as above, so below. Like I feel like whatever is happening internally in you will always be reflected in your space in one way or
Yeah,
another. And
that's what I was trying to
so
say.
what, like you can clean up your space and it'll clean up you. You'll clean up you. Like people can totally relate. They've gone through a
Mm,
breakup or had some change, and like they look at their room and it's like everything has to change. Like you'll just like do it because you've made a big emotional shift inside, and like it's just not okay anymore. It's just like you're not in resonance with it. And so you need to
Mm.
change it. And the same thing will go like if you actually change your environment, your internal state and how you react with it will also change.
Got you. Yeah, yeah, and yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. I agree. It does sound. It sounds a bit woo woo, but it's so true, isn't it? I know when at my I've been feeling at my most chaotic. That's when there is the most chaos around in my outside world. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I mean, I was definitely one of those students where it's like, I am postponing writing. I'm gonna clean the whole house and like make like my environment nice. And so there's some degree of like, I don't know if it's like too much, like it's not neurosis, but like it's just like being practical. It's like, how do you get your energy to move? How do you like if I think about it in a
Mm,
practical, it's like I couldn't sit down and write and like focus. I'm moving my body, I'm doing something productive, I'm creating organization in my space. It then
yeah,
creates organization and clarity in my thoughts and like being able to
absolutely.
like be there. So it's like a workout, it's clarity, it's like clean. And I really view that, we talk about cleaning up the environment like externally, like pollution, all this stuff. And yet so many of us live in like
Mm,
I have a friend and they're part of a cleanup group and they like walk the streets pretty much every morning, cleaning up trash, really creating a really nice neighborhood environment by cleaning the streets and cleaning the town. But yet their house is somewhat of a disaster.
yeah.
And like no judgment but that, but it's just like she's also like I'll relate that to like she's also very much looking outwards. How can I please other people? How can I show up other
Mm,
place and doesn't really take care of herself? And so I also feel like that's reflected in the actions and then her
yeah.
environment as well. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
So, Nalasa, what tips do you have a couple of tips you can give so say somebody's listening to this and they're thinking, there might be something in this I could really do with doing something with the house. It can feel really overwhelming. So, what would be your tips for just getting started? How can we just start on this mission?
Yeah. So I don't know if I should wait till the end. I'm gonna throw it out. I do my free gift
Yes, please do.
is
Yeah, tell us,
a
tell us.
beautiful workbook that I made. And so I would suggest you starting with that because that works both with the energy and then there's also somewhat of a template in there for you to create a commitment to yourself of like what you want to work on and thinking about like what tools you need to do to make it like flow for you. And so there's a couple of different parts of there. There's a visualization, there's a connection of who you are right now, where you're at, and then practical guidelines for how to, like, what area you do want to work, what's your vision,
Mm,
what steps can you take, what ingredients you need to do that. And
mm,
and
lovely.
I think like having a commitment. So, like I said with you when we were doing, it's like you have to do it, but a lot of times like you don't even want to start or you start and then
Mm,
it's just like this isn't the right
yeah.
time. Like I can't do this right now. And so like a tip is like people will say, do 5 minutes every day. That I feel like is like too little
Mm,
time too often and then it like floods your system and you get overdone it and like doing it every like there's maintenance that you can do every day but like
mhm,
as far as like if you actually want to like get like clean on something like 5 minutes a day is just going to take forever. So I suggested to you as well is like commit like 3 times a week doing
mm,
work for like 15 minutes a day on like something like what are you
mm,
wanting to like commit to? Like what
yeah.
is the project? Commit to doing like a small chunk of time and allowing at least one of those times that the momentum's going to propel you forward. You're naturally going to like fall into a flow
Mm,
and it will just
yeah.
go. And so, and
Mhm.
that can like be anywhere from like an hour, sometimes it's like 4 hours, and it's just like, oh my God, I did so much.
Yeah.
But giving your space, that's kind of like the same thing with exercise. It's like as soon as you start, you're like, oh, I can keep going. But like the
Mhm,
crux is
mhm.
in the brain. But yeah. And so like allowing that was, I think, a
Mm.
great way to
Yeah,
make
certainly that
impact. And
happens.
then,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. So so yeah, absolutely. I mean, you said to me that allow space if if you're feeling moved, and that's what happened. I did the sheets. I was like, oh, I could do shoes now, and you actually feel. happy with yourself, because there's some sort of great relief in letting go of it. And it must be the same as in therapy. You know, you're letting go of that clutter out of your head, you're letting go of the clutter from your house. And
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
will you be able to put a link to your
Yes.
beautiful workbook? Because I have had a sneak preview. It's gorgeous. Obviously it's going to be gorgeous because it's a beautiful space to be with. So will you pop that in the chat
I
for
definitely
our
will.
listeners, so that they can get their free workbook and get started somewhere?
Yeah.
What One more question. What sort of results can the people who are maybe going to do this workbook and are going to start, what results do people get after they have, I've said spaciousness, haven't I? Feeling that sense of relief and spaciousness. What other results do your clients get?
I mean, I think like the return on investment, like the return on the time that you give yourself to like establish this connection and create a space that you love to be in, like is really not measurable. Like
No.
it has so many rippling effects, whether from just like if you feel better, if you enter a space and it like enlivens you. The other thing I work with is like aliveness. Like how do you bring aliveness into your world, into your space?
Mm,
How do you infuse it with love and things that you just like love to be around, that give you that like cozy, like just wonderful grounded home feeling regardless
mm,
of the scenario, um as well as like your own energy, like what are you wanting to like be inspired by each day and have there.
mm, mm.
And I think, you know, yeah, the like results, like just like more productivity,
Mhm.
ease, just enjoyment of like being there, of being um less time, like you gain time, like if you make your life more productive, like more streamlined and like necessity. Like there's clients that I've worked with, and just even thinking about like their, and I worked in industrial kitchens, so like looking at a
Ah,
woman's bakery and like how she can just like function, and like small things like she would walk, this like 8 feet to like put away all of her little trinkets that she had to access all the time. And I'm just like, put a shelf right above your main work
yeah,
area. You don't have to like do that extra like 10
yeah,
feet every 10 minutes, and like
yeah.
that significantly cuts down on time. So like there's all of these like workflow patterns, like same thing in like any sort of business that you run. It's like, how do you streamline something? How do you also streamline your environment, create the aesthetic that you like? I think it clears up emotional like hardships, it clears up like
Mm,
your space. um, it really makes you feel um, just like in tune with your environment, in tune with your world, and
yeah,
like
yeah,
what comes from that is like,
yeah,
as
yeah.
far as you can
And
imagine.
yeah, and I've only just begun,
Yeah.
and yeah, and it already feels good. So yeah, I can. If
Yeah.
somebody likes the workbook and wants to work with you, do you do online work, or is it
Yes.
just
So
face
I
to
do a
face?
lot of remote work. I do different coaching depending on where you're located. I travel around the world a lot, depending on our work together. Sometimes I'll come to your house, and help you with that. But I'm a strong component that like you doing the work actually makes the biggest
Mm,
difference. Like I can
yeah,
come in and like organize everything, but you might revert back to the same things. It's like if you sweep that dirt underneath the couch, if you like wipe that thing, if you're the one that gets rid or organizes this stuff, like that's where the real
yeah,
magic happens. Like I kind of view this as like like personal growth through home design. And so
yeah.
in you, like I'm there to support and help. Like I work with clients one-on-one. I do home and soul readings as well, which is the exchange that we did that just kind of gives you an energy burst. I work on like creating scapes for podcast backgrounds, things like
Hmm.
that, as well as working with people around whatever design issues, or design
Mm,
ideas, structuring, etc. So
yeah.
yeah, I have so much fun with like all of it. I love space. I love like creating
Mhm.
systems. I love design. I love really bringing, like, so much of it is so bespoke. It's really like what brings you alive and how can you make that more in your environment. And I have a whole
Beautiful.
tool belt of both energetics, feng shui, organization, etc. to draw from. So
Fantastic.
yeah.
So if anybody that's listening does want to work with Nalasa, your
Yeah.
first step would be to download the book, and then you'll be
Download the book. There's a question on the link that will ask if you want to join my
yeah.
email list.
There you go.
And
Lovely.
I have my email at the end of the book. You're welcome to contact me and ask for, uh, yeah, we can have a conversation and go from there to see what you need, what I can offer, etc.
Yeah. That no, it's good. I can highly recommend Nalasa. Highly recommend her. She's really, really support. And so I love the way that you're so gentle with it as well, and you really do understand the it's you're not just getting rid of some stuff. There's a whole backstory. Something else you said that really stuck with me was when, because I was talking to Nalasa about leaving the house here in Spain and moving back to the UK at some point. We're not in a rush, but doing that at some point. And this house has got so much of me in it, my heart and soul and joy, and there is so much of me in the house. And the thought, like I said to her, I feel like I've got to kind of grieve for the house, letting go of it and saying goodbye. And what did you say about houses not? What was it you said? Can you remember? You said to me something about the houses have more than one owner, so they go on with all of the souls of all of the people that have been in that property. You are kind of part of that legacy, so
You absolutely
that the
are.
house isn't dying. You're not
Yeah.
grieving because it's not dying. It's just you're leaving your imprint there. And
Hmm.
I like that. That it kind of made it feel a lot a lot easier that the house would
Yeah.
keep my energy in it, sort of thing.
Yeah, and none of your memories are going anywhere. Like all of those,
Yeah.
like all the love that you have with the house is still 100% alive, like
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
you, in the house, in like this space. And someone might come in and like change it or do other things, make it their own, obviously. But like how much you love it, like that's been 100% like
Yeah.
worth every single moment. And really also just to like enjoy that, like enjoy the time. Like I love the fact that you don't have to like rush, that it feels like you're in
Yeah.
flow for when you're moving and everything, but
Yeah.
really just having that, not necessarily mourning, but like how do you celebrate your
Yeah.
life there in the next
Yeah.
year or two as like you pack it up. And one thing we touched upon is like, you do have the space to be able to declutter and move and get rid of the things that aren't
Mm.
necessary for when you move back to the UK. And so part of
Yeah.
that is also like how do you enjoy the house to its fullest capacity in
Yeah.
this like purging process to like complete your
Yeah.
journey of cleansing and growing and being there and everything. So
Yeah.
it's all it's
Exactly.
yeah, I just find it so fun. I feel like it's such deep, important work for the world for people to do, and
Yeah.
I love it so much. Like I love the growth and support and like beauty that like we're creating. So like the whole
Yeah.
idea is like I'm a purveyor of beauty. It's like how do you
Mm.
live in beauty, walk in beauty, etc. And
Oh,
so
that's lovely.
I
Mm.
uh, like I feel like that's like what I share and gift people, and I am very, very like there's no shame, there's no like blame, there's no anything to the space. Like if you're ready to move it, it's like it wants to be moved. Like space wants to be used, space wants to be
Mm.
occupied. Like aliveness wants to be present in everything,
Mm.
and just how much growth there is and stuff. And so it's as soon as you're ready, the world is ready for you.
Oh, that's beautiful. No, that's absolutely beautiful. Yeah, your work is amazing, amazing. I I would like to ask you one last question before we wrap up,
Sure.
and it's the question is: you've been on an amazing journey through your life. I know that you travel a lot, as you said. You do all this wonderful work with people in their spaces. You have obviously been on a journey to get to where you are now. If you were to look back, because a lot of the work I do is around inner child healing, so I like to
Mhm.
bring this in just before we wrap up. If you were to go back and ask to give your younger self a piece of advice for when you're older, yeah, from now you're going to look back, you're going to go back to that young girl, what you choose the age. What piece of advice would you give your younger self now?
I mean, the first thing that came into my mind is just that, like, never forget just how loved you are. Um,
Mm,
and And just like, yeah, so part of what I work with is like home, and home not in like they're home and soul readings, but it's home with like what makes you feel supported, loved, um, just like the deeper things of what we associate home with, as opposed to a physical space. It's like, how do you create, like home is about spaciousness and safety and love and care and stability and all of these other things.
Yeah.
And I view that with the environment. I've traveled to over 40 countries. I've traveled, I've explored. I'm very adventurous and very
Mhm.
international. And and part of it is like, home is, the whole saying, like, home is where the heart is, but it's where you feel comfortable. It's where you feel comfortable being yourself.
Mm.
And I haven't really got into my own history of things, though. The hypnotherapy session I did with you the other day knocked me out for like 2 days. I was just like, oh my gosh, I am just
Yeah.
digesting some stuff. It was really, really deep and beautiful work, so thank you so much for that.
Oh, my pleasure. Yeah.
um and yeah, but just like really feeling that connection, that home, that love, of being. And like, we are, depending on your terminology, it's like we're all just kind of like visiting Earth, and like, this
Mm.
is our home. And how do you steward your spot in that to the best of your ability?
Yeah.
And in my case, like, how do you make it absolutely beautiful and exquisite? So
Yeah. So she's to your advice to your younger self to remember how loved she is.
yeah, and just, mm, yeah, to remember how loved you are, and like, just your connection. There's also like, I almost want to say, like, not you, like, you don't need to try as hard or so
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
And part of that is like feeling comfortable and being home as well. It's
Yeah.
like, how do you allow yourself to be, and to like trust yourself? So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a mix. It's not like a one sentence
No,
like
no,
this,
no.
but more of like
It feels like it's a
a
feely
warm
thing,
embrace for
really.
my, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like I give
Yeah.
myself like a really beautiful, delicious hug,
Yeah.
and still
Yeah.
lots of things into it. So
Lovely.
yeah.
Nalassa, it's been wonderful to chat with you. As the listeners can probably gather, we could chat all day, but we're coming up to the end of our time. So thank you so much, everybody, ladies. Oh, Jessica's here. Hi, Jessica. Thank you for your stay. She says, stay in Spain, Sarah. She's dreading the winter in the UK. I know it's about 40 odd degrees here today, Jessica. So I kind of, isn't it funny when you're really hot, you can't imagine what it'll be like to feel really cold again. You just can't do it. And in the winter, when we're freezing here, because it gets cold here too, I can't imagine what it would be like in the summer. It's mad, isn't it? But yes, yes, there's a lot of people think I'm crazy wanting to go back to the UK. But whatever happens,
Every
I will
place
have
has its
decluttered the
own.
house. Yeah. So everybody, thank you so much for listening, and make sure you tune in next Wednesday. We will be back on Wednesday interviewing another lovely lady, and we'll have more insights and wisdoms and practical tips to help you live your most limitless life. So thank you, Nalasa, so much. Make sure that
Thank
you
you so
download
much.
the workbook, everybody. Nalasa will put the link into the chat. And if you've got any friends who aren't on Facebook but you think would really like this, they can get it on YouTube, which it'll be uploaded at the weekend on Saturday, and the link will be in the comments as well. So thank you so much,
Yes.
my darling. It's
Great.
been an absolute pleasure. So bye bye, everybody. Thanks for watching,
Thank
and
you.
see you next
Bye.
Wednesday.